for Spencer to demonstrate his selflessness and commitment to preside over the empowerment of the masses instead of creating a private monopoly in the interests of the elite special interests. And I had other things to use to describe them then. Madam Speaker, having read that document, I believe that I would have proven conclusively that I do not support private monopolies. But let us look at the case in point, Madam Speaker, with the Hadids. Somewhere along the line, having been negotiating with these two private entities, one in China, or maybe the Chinese government for that matter, and a private entity here, they eventually found themselves in a situation, Madam Speaker, in which they had to jettison the Hadids. So they then reneged from the 50.9 generation deal, the joint venture. And what was happening, Madam Speaker? The Honourable Member for St. John's Rural West and Ambassador Shaul, probably a couple more in the cabinet, they're the ones who were promoting this Chinese deal. And they were coming up against, Madam Speaker, the member for St. Philip South and others who will remain nameless, I like the Barbuda member too, and the Barbuda member, Madam Speaker, who were supporting the Hadi deal. And let me tell you this, Madam Speaker. They talk about greed. Part of the problem there is people jockeying for whatever benefits. And I don't want to get any further with that, because I don't want you to say that I'm imputing improper motives. But, Madam Speaker, you had two parallel groups within the cabinet negotiating with two different entities. Now, evidently, the one in which the Prime Minister is the leader, obviously, ultimately prevailed. So then, they decided not to honor the full joint venture agreement, only to accept the 17 megs of power from the Hadids. And they needed that, Madam Speaker, because they needed it urgently. Speaker, what's your point of order?
I must inform the member again.
Is a point of order?
Yes, a point of information.
What's the point of order?
Continues to refer.
No,
wait, are you standing on a point of order, elucidation?
Elucidation.
And I'm not yielding, Madam Speaker.
Well,
and for the second time, can you please listen and learn?
He doesn't have to yield.
Have your seat. Thank you very much. You'll get your turn. You haven't spoken as yet. You'll get your turn. What are you getting so hot-headed for? Take it easy. The point, you will have your turn to speak.
Okay, just continue, Honourable Member.
Madam Speaker, as I said, let me reiterate it. You had two groups in the cabinet. One headed by Minister Daniel, a member for St. Philip South, and one headed by Rural West, the Honourable Prime Minister, Madam Speaker, negotiating with two different entities, and the group headed by the Honourable Prime Minister prevailed. So they had to jettison the Hadi deal, Madam Speaker. Now, they had a crisis leading up to the World Cup. They had to have additional supply of energy, and evidently, it's only the Hadid group could have provided them with the 17 megs on a timely basis. So they went to for the 17 megs, Madam Speaker. But the Hadids, and this is my understanding here, having been given the reliance initially that they would be in this joint venture agreement, had already gone ahead and ordered the 33 megs as well. Because, Madam Speaker, these plans take some time, and I believe maybe a year or two. So they went ahead on the premise that the government had agreed, and as I stated here, there were talks, there were negotiations, there were certain agreements, Madam Speaker, they were actually signed, even by members of the cabinet. They went ahead and purchased their plants. So a few months ago, or maybe nearly a year ago, when the additional 3 plants came to this country, Madam Speaker, UPP government then recognized, look, we are in an embarrassing situation. We already committed to the Chinese, and here's a situation in which the APC group went ahead and bought these 3 additional generators. So a decision had to be taken. So they actually resorted to force. And that's when the Honourable Prime Minister, the member for Rural West, ordered the police to go up there with all the guns, Madam Speaker, to stop them from placing the engines inside of, well, their property at Crabs. Now, Madam Speaker, it is well known that without the 3 new plants that are sitting at Crabs, Madam Speaker, that APC was at full capacity. I want to repeat that point, Madam Speaker. it is well known that without those 3 plants that they have sitting there, those 3 new brand plants, Madam Speaker, that APC was already at full capacity in terms of power generation in this country. So the government ought to have known, Madam Speaker, that anything could have happened. In fact, other than routine maintenance, Madam Speaker, something potentially could have gone wrong with one of the plants. So, having known that, they made no contingency plans, Madam Speaker. Or if indeed there were contingency plans, because I know that at one point they brought in a few units from Venezuela, and they had about 10 megs. And one would have expected that before they decommissioned those plants, Madam Speaker, that they would have even kept them for a while in order to deal with any eventuality, any contingencies. Because I think, Madam Speaker, it would have been foolhardy for the Honourable Member for Rural West, or the Member for City East for that matter, to expect that the Haddies would have cooperated with them to put the 3 new plants online. And let me just liken this, Madam Speaker, to someone going to Hani Motors, for instance, to borrow a Prada to use for 3 weeks, and then decide, you know what, after 3 weeks, put it back in your showroom. What do you think going to happen? They're going to lose value. Maybe 20%, 30%. So here's a situation in which you have the crisis, and they have now gone to the Haddids to ask them to put their 3 new plants online for 3 weeks. And then, you know, they can leave them to go obsolete after that. That can't be fair to the Haddids. And let me make it clear, I ain't now holding the remit for them, but that can't be fair. You can't ask them to put their 3 new brand plants online, run them for 3 weeks, take them off, and then have nothing else to do with them. Why didn't you go to them to even buy one of the plants? If you can't buy 3, why you didn't try to buy 1 in order to resolve the situation? And let me say here, Madam Speaker, there is a type of cavalier leadership coming from members on the other side, especially the Honourable Prime Minister, because he believes that he can stand up in this country and tell people that his heart is pure and just follow him, trust his judgment, he has his head on. That is not acceptable. And let me tell you, sometimes you have to use diplomacy. Sometimes they say you have to lick ass, and you can have the rest. Excuse my language, Madam Speaker. But,
excuse me?
Point I'm making, my apologies.
Thank you.
But the point is, Madam Speaker, you have to know when to stoop. I have this situation. You can say whatever you want. But the point is, Madam Speaker, you have to know sometimes when to stoop. And here's a situation in which the Prime Minister and some of his members, Madam Speaker, have been very brutal. Rather than trying to resolve this issue using some form of diplomacy, they're basically demanding that before any negotiations can take place, that the Haddies must put the plant back in line. Now, Madam Speaker, I want to caution the members on the other side that what is happening right now, in which you have 2 entities providing power generation, and only one will be accepted, because we only need one, it's going to result in this government, Madam Speaker, paying a substantial amount of litigation fees. I have no doubt, Madam Speaker, that there is negligence on the part of the government insofar as this APC deal is concerned. Because if they knew that the Chinese were going to come through with them, they had no right, Madam Speaker, no right to entertain APC. So to say that you're entertaining 50.9 megs and then settle for 17, it's nonsense. And let me tell you now, the document that the Honourable Member for City East is referring to, that document, Madam Speaker, is dated February 2007. Well after, Madam Speaker, nearly a year after the joint venture proposal was signed by the Honourable Member.
Point of correction, May 2006.
I have it here, you know. Madam Speaker, I do not accept that intervention. I have the joint venture proposal here, Madam Speaker, and it is dated February 2007. And in any event, Madam Speaker, the letter that was signed, the letter